Hey peeps, back with another video, finally. And today's video is going to be about having a buffer. Webcomic creators, have a buffer, please, I beg of you. Uh, I just wanted to start off by saying thank you guys so much for commenting on the last the video all the way back in January that I made about Instagram. I just want to make one thing very abundantly clear. This is not a channel of like complaining and spilling tea. It's really not. It was just my humble opinion on the direction in which that particular social media is going, and I believe like alternatives that I do use, but I'm not really going to be delving too much more into that kind of topic because I just wanted to get it off my chest, and I'm glad you guys were also able to as well, but that is not this kind of channel. I just wanted to air some grievances on that, but I really do thank you. I read every comment, just so you know. I want to thank you guys for commenting and sharing your thoughts. I tried to reply to as many people as I possibly could, but I kind of want to move on. That video is like months old, and I know that what I make now doesn't really garner that much attention like that, but I do really appreciate you guys for sticking around and deciding to subscribe to my channel and like my stuff like on its own, because that's kind of why I'm here. Like I do like to share my work, and I like to share my thoughts and the process of making said work, and most of that is webcomic creation and sometimes storyboarding. So without further ado, I wanted to get into the topic of this video, which is webcomic creators have a buffer. So for those of you who don't know what a buffer is, let me explain, especially if you're new at making webcomics or webtoons or whatever it is you're creating. A buffer is basically having a backlog of work ready to go just in case, or just work in an archive ready to be posted at a future date. And what that does is it prepares you for whatever might happen. Now, your mileage may vary based on different factors and preferences, like how many times a week you upload or how much you get done. So the way that I like to do it, or the way that I ended up doing it, because I didn't really have a choice, was that I actually made a lot of pages before I even started posting. I made a lot of pages. I planned them out, I sketched them, inked them, colored them, and I had like a good portion of, not my story, but a good portion of the comic at least ready to go and ready to be worked on, because I didn't want to come to a blank page and go, oh well, I'm here in my script, but the canvas is blank, what do I draw? So what I like to do was I like to sketch out several pages that I've scripted out, at least have the sketch out, and then start in on inking like 5 pages and then coloring 5 pages before moving on to the next thing. I wouldn't necessarily letter them quite at that stage, but at least I would have like a chunk ready to go, and then another like portion ready to go, for, I don't want to say chunk, but portion ready to go, and I add that to the buffer. Now, currently, the buffer for Elusios is until October. Since I only update once a week, it's very advantageous for me to have a buffer that long out into the future. And there are, like I said, there's advantages and there's some disadvantages to having a buffer. I was actually reading the discussion on Comic Fury about this, like, is there such thing as too much buffer? So I wanted to get into that for a bit, and in my humble opinion, no, there's not. You never know what can happen, and as long as you have pages scheduled out, you can be ready to either A, take a break, or handle whatever life has throwing at you, like live in front of a live studio audience. But yeah, so I have pages. Since I only update once a week, you might want to update twice a week, and so therefore your your pages might be scheduled differently. You might have a different amount of work that you do before you even start uploading, etc., etc. I'm not on Webtoon or Tapas, so I don't have an episode long form scrolling format. I have page by page. So in that respect, I sort of have this experiment going where, since it's page by page, the buffer goes to October, right? And my patrons are actually sort of like my beta readers, because they get to see that latest page now. The general public has to wait until October to see that particular page, and that's kind of polarizing. Like I said, there's advantages and disadvantages to it, but I actually kind of like the idea of having that much ready to go, but it also means that I'm not really stopping, because I'm still making the pages live for people that are like, for a select few of people. So as soon as a new page drops, they know about it. But as far as everybody else is concerned, they have to wait, or they don't really know that I have that much of a buffer. Well, I just told you, but like, they don't really know like how much longer out that scheduling is. But there is something to be said for consistency in uploading, because that is a very hard thing to do when you do not have a buffer. So it can be very, very, very advantageous to you to have one ready to go when you start uploading, so that you can keep working on the stuff that you're actually working on versus like flying by the seat of your pants. So here are some advantages. You can have more wiggle room. You know, like I said, life happens, things happen, circumstances happen, or you're tired after work and you can't really work that day on your comic, so you're like, oh man, you know, forget that, I'm just gonna go to bed. And then like, you're like, oh, but I have this update on Wednesday that I just have to absolutely get done. But it's like, you're tired. You shouldn't force yourself to do that. So in my opinion, having wiggle room means that you work on your comic at your own pace. In the beginning, before you even start posting it online or anywhere, you work on it at your own pace, because that's what I did. I didn't have the pressure of scheduling something out for a certain day. I didn't have the pressure of readers, and I still kind of don't have too much of a pressure for readers, because I just started posting. But that was the advantage of not posting quite yet. I know it's exciting, I know it's like, oh, I really want to get this story, I really want people to see it, but this is where patience is actually a virtue, because then you can work out all the kinks in your storyline, or all the pages that you want to like iron out, and the pacing issues and everything like that. You can have a second reader that you like trust with your writing and your pacing and everything. You can have like one or two other people read your stuff as you're working on it. But in terms of like posting it right away, I would say wait till you have like as many pages as you're comfortable with, and then some, like maybe 3 extra on the buffer line or something like that. But you want to have that wiggle room, because you never know what's going to happen, where you're either like, life happens, like I said. Another advantage is that you can work on something else. Now, I said that I had my stuff out till October, like the almost the middle of October now, but I'm still updating that buffer as I update. And that gives me time to go, oh, well, I actually am running 2 comics at the same time, but one is more strictly scheduled than the other. So I'm like, oh, well, I have time now to actually start working on this other comic that's not really too plot heavy, but I can start working on it at my own pace, and I don't really have to worry about whether or not I'm going to have the next page of my other story up on time, because I have that time to really hone in on this other story or this other project. Like I said, October, I have ample time to work on something for Halloween, which I've been wanting to do for literal years. I've been wanting to do something for Halloween, and I'm going to do it this year. Gosh dang it. But yeah, the other advantage to a buffer is, at least for me, it's fun seeing readers react to where the story is at in the buffer, or like where it's at currently versus where it actually is that you're working on it. So I haven't really witnessed this yet, but I know I'm going to, because I know I'm going to have fun with it. But once I get a readership, it's going to be fun having people theorize and talk about the story and the characters and whatnot, just to see what what they think will happen versus what actually happens. They might be spot on, they might be way off, but I know that that's going to be real fun for me to read. So yeah, that's kind of like where I'm at right now. Like I said, if you want a consistent schedule, have a buffer. That's the only other thing that's advantageous to having a buffer. I want to talk about some of the disadvantages that actually popped up in this forum chat on Comic Fury. I think the main poster, the original poster, had said, you might not be as happy with your art if the buffer art is old and you've improved since then. Now, that happens sometimes. I think it hasn't happened. I haven't personally ever run across this issue because I haven't ever had a buffer that's like, say, like a year out or anything like that. It's usually been like 1 or 2 months like I have right now. But I can see where this is going. Like, another disadvantage is like if you want to redo or you regret a story point and you're tempted to do it over, that's kind of a tough case-by-case basis. And if you really feel like your art is just way improved since like your uploaded buffer or anything, and you really want to like improve upon that, you could still have that wiggle room to like maybe go, oh well, I can improve this, or I can have the character say that and it fit better with the plot that I actually want to go with, or things like that. But I wouldn't mess with anything too much if you've already kind of have it ready to go. It is what it is, and it never really, well, it used to bother me, but now it doesn't. Having older art in your comic archive is natural. It's kind of a snapshot of where you were at in your storytelling process. It's a time capsule of your art and where it was at the time. It can't be helped. And maybe back in the day when you posted, you were proud of that work, but you've improved since then. And in my opinion, I don't want to insult my younger self for not knowing what I know now, because that kind of can't be helped. You kind of have to move on because everything is a process, and as long as it's finished, that's what you want. It doesn't need to be perfect to be a webcomic. Trust me, there are a lot of webcomics that started from the bottom and now we're here, like there have been a lot of improvements even over like a few months. So have patience with yourself in that respect, I would say, and try to be happy with where you're going rather than where you were at. Another disadvantage could be like there's no instant gratification or like live reading, or you might not be motivated because you have little to no or slow feedback. So if you have all of this buffer like way out into the future, but you're only at like the beginning of the middle part of your story, but you can't wait for the beat to drop, and you can't wait for the next comic, like the actual part that you're at, you're totally over the beginning of the middle of your comic. You're over that. That's not what you're focused on. You want people to know where you're at right now, because that's the real heavy hitter story that you want to hit right now. That can be at a disadvantage if you go too far out. Like I said, I've never witnessed that. If any of you guys have like a year out buffer, let me know, because I think that's pretty rare actually. But yeah, I can see where you would be like really anxious and excited and like, no, forget about that. I can't wait for you to get to the part that I'm really excited about. Like I think that's natural too, because I'm pretty excited about like story points that I haven't even finished drawing. But it's okay. Like I'd rather wait and have a buffer than fly by the seat of my pants like some of y'all out here. Like the other thing is like you like to live dangerously. You like to live on the edge of your seat. Some of y'all, like the sinners that you are, just like to post as you go, and you have no buffer, and that's that's okay. I was there once. There was a point where I would be like, oh crap, it's Wednesday, my page is due Thursday, and I have nothing on the page. I don't ever want to live that dangerously again, but this is where some people are at, and that's okay. Like, that's just kind of how it is sometimes. And sometimes people like that, especially if you have like a kind of like a gag-a-day or like a current events sort of comic theme going, and that's how you make your stuff, then, you know, more power to you. I didn't mean to call you guys sinners. But like, yeah, everybody does their thing differently, and if you have a long form comic, you might find more advantage in having a buffer than if you had like a gag-a-day or a simple 4-page or 4-panel comic. It's okay. I just wanted to talk about buffers because they're so important in webcomics. And I actually don't know how buffers work in terms of like long form scrolling formats or like episodes. So if you have like a webtoon or something, let me know in the comments how you pace out and buffer and schedule out your pages, because I have no idea. I don't know. I don't make those things, like I said, but I'm really interested in figuring out how you guys do that, because I know like your pages are like hella long, and like, do you make 6 of those and just have it ready to go, or what's going on there? That's really interesting. Anyway, that's the video for today. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing and liking and commenting. And I want to give a quick shout out to my patrons who support me. Thank you for being so patient with me. I really appreciate it. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.